All right. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's first PPP unit presentation. My name is Lieven, and I co-chair the Asia-Pacific chapter of WAPPP. I'm also a certified PPP trainer and provide consulting services to authorities, private investors in PPPs in Asia as well as the Middle East. And today I'm honored to host the Japan-PPP PFI Promotion Office. Japan has a strong and growing PPP market, and over the last 20 years has established itself as a market leader in the PPP space in Asia. It has proven that PPPs are not just another procurement method, but it can be a real means to address important issues like integrating resilience, disaster prevention, and really providing value for people and value for future beyond just value for money. And so our speaker today is Mr. Tenabe. Mr. Tenabe currently works as a special advisor at the PPP PFI Promotion Office, which is part of the Cabinet Office of the Government of Japan, where he is responsible for international affairs related to PPP and PFI promotion. Prior to joining the Cabinet Office in 2021, he worked for the leading Japanese road infrastructure company, where he was in charge of managing overseas subsidiary companies as their country head, both in the United States as well as in Myanmar. Mr. Tenabe was has a combined work experience in the field of construction, primarily as a business development specialist of over 30 plus years. So a very warm welcome to you, Mr. Tenabe. Before I hand over to him, I'd like to just give a few housekeeping rules. You're welcome to ask your questions to find out more about the topics and case studies that are covered here. So please write your questions in the Q&A box, where we will reserve them for the Q&A session at the end. So again, a very warm welcome to you, Mr. Tenabe, and please educate us about PPP and PFI in Japan. And I do believe that you have prepared some very interesting case studies related to people first and resilient PPPs. The floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you, Lieven-san, for a kind introduction. So first, let me share my screen. Okay, can you confirm? Lieven-san? Hello? Lieven-san, can you confirm? Oh.
Sorry, please go ahead.
Can you confirm?
Yes, we can see.
Is it okay? Is it sharing?
Well,
okay.
Sorry, not now, right? You will have to share it again, and then we can see it.
Wait. Oh, God. Sorry for this.
No problem.
I am so sorry for this, yeah. Okay, is this okay?
Yes, if you can put it on full screen, that would be great.
All right.
Excellent. That's very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Okay. Yes. Greetings to everyone. My name is Osamu Tanabe. I am a special advisor to PPP PFI Promotion Office, Cabinet Office of Japan. Well, thank you for this opportunity, and it is my great pleasure to be able to speak to you in this very important agenda. And honored to be the first speaker of the day 3. So what I would like to do today is to start by talking about covering general topics of PPPs in Japan. And then I will give a short presentation about two case studies. One is about airport concession project for a small regional airport. And the second one is about disaster prevention hub implemented through the combined approach of traditional procurement and PPPs. Both cases represent an example of integrating disaster resilience through PPPs. However, the cases are unlike the large-scale infrastructure projects discussed in the context of filling the infrastructure gap. Projects are rather small in scale because in Japan, major infrastructure sector such as railways, highways, telecoms, etc., have already been privatized, if not 100%, due to the reform of state-owned enterprise took place since the mid-1980s. So I will say that in Japan, there are not too much big infrastructure projects involving new construction implemented under the PPP scheme. Okay, well, let me start by talking you about, who we are and what we do. Here I have outlined the general information that you need to know about PPP unit in Japan. PPP PFI Promotion Office was established in 1999 with the enactment of PFI Act. The office is structured under the Cabinet Office. We don't fund or procure any projects. We coordinate with different procurement authorities, such as ministries, agencies, and local governments who actually holds jurisdiction over the eligible facilities. So our main role is to develop a fiscal action plan, which sets a priority of action aligned with national economic policy. We also establish midterm goals, coordinate committee meetings, formulate manuals and guidelines, and provide a variety of capacity building support for local governments to help promote more PPP projects. The Cabinet Office holds jurisdiction over PFI Act, so initiating, suggesting amendments to law is also under the responsibility of our office. This is just to give you a sense of scale and the current status of PFI projects in Japan. Graph to your left shows the cumulative number of PFI projects implemented between 1999 and 2021. There are 875 projects implemented through the PFI method. And please note that in Japan, we define PFI as projects delivered in compliance with the PFI Act. So in this figure, other different types of PPPs are not included. There was a noticeable drop in 2020 due to the effect of pandemic, but overall, it is a well-established market, and government's political willingness to undertake PFI is higher than ever, with PFI being positioned as one of the pillar of the PPP initiatives in the Prime Minister's new economic policy. Graph to your right shows cumulative contract value of PFI projects, which has reached approximately $60 billion in the past 22 years. Contract value per year basis is roughly between $3 to $4 billion. Size of each project, of course, varies among the sectors, but roughly 70, 80 million dollars in average. So I'll say that the size of each PFI projects in Japan are maybe much smaller compared with other countries. Okay, very quickly, PFI projects broken down into each sectors. As you can see in the table, projects are implemented across wide and broad range of sectors, with the education and cultural sector apply the most. BTO model accounts for more than 70% of the PFI projects in Japan, and mostly implemented in the area of public buildings. Okay, well here I like to talk a little bit about concession system in Japan by trying to highlight a difference between other countries. Concession system was introduced with the amendment to the PFI Act in 2011 with the aim to expand the user pay model. The method was what we generally call concession in Japan, has its own name, the right to operate public facilities, where the private operator is given the right to operate a facility by paying consideration for the right. So in Japan, when we use the term concession, we refer to the specific method carried out under the PFI Act. So operating right is generally established for existing facilities, which does not require new construction. And if the project involving construction of new facilities, we would call them like build, transfer plus concession. So concession in Japan is more of an operational focused delivery method. And one of the significant aspect of concession is that it allows concessionaire to mortgage its concession rights to its lenders so that to encourage more financing into PFI projects. And as of now, 41 projects have been implemented under the concession scheme, with the airport carried out the most, with 12 projects implemented in 19 airports. One last thing I like to touch on about concession is that just recently, on June 3rd, the new action plan for PPP PFI promotion was approved at the council meeting headed by the Prime Minister to place a particular focus on expanding concession system, and as the pillar of the new action plan. So while concession projects have been implemented mainly in the airport sector, the government will, we put focus on accelerating to expand into diverse sectors, including stadiums, arenas, cultural education facilities, to promote more concession projects. Okay, yes, case studies. Okay, now we like to move on to the project cases. Let me start from Nanki-Shirahama Airport, PPP. So what is this project case study for? This case is basically about a challenge of private sector to develop a model for airport-based regional revitalization with emphasis on mitigation and energy resilience to improve overall sustainability of the region. So I will explain in the next slides. Very quickly, overview of the Nanki-Shirahama Airport. The airport originally opened in 1968 and reopened as a new airport in 1996. The airport is a small regional airport with annual passengers around 177,000, located at town of Shirahama in Wakayama Prefecture in Kansai region. Flight time from Tokyo Haneda is about 65 minutes. So once you're on the plane, it's not too far to get there. Nanki-Shirahama is known as a resort town, very rich in tourism resources, famous for the World Heritage Kumano-Kodo, which is a network of pilgrimage trails stretching across the Kii Peninsula. Takes about 30 minutes drive to Takijiri, a traditional starting point of the Kumano-Kodo. So the trail is easily accessible from the airport. Okay, next I'd like to talk about the PPP project. So the project had a clear objective in terms of what public sector is looking for. The airport run by the government was not financially performing well, so needed to come up with a solution to stop the accumulated deficit. Most of the small regional airports in Japan are struggling from the same situation, so this isn't just the case for Nanki-Shirahama. In 2019, Wakayama Prefecture decided to bring in private sector to manage the facility and signed a concession agreement with private sector consortium led by IGPI Group. Concession period is for 10 years, and I think it's extendable for another or additional 10 years. It is a mixed type concession where you have two different revenue sources, government payment during the operation period and an income tied to tenant revenue from shops and restaurants. Prefectural government expect to save $5.4 million from the operational cost reduction through the concessionaire. Okay, yes, very quickly, a geographic of the area. The biggest threats of the region now is earthquake. According to the experts, the Nankai Toraf mega earthquake off Japan's Pacific coast has high probability of occurrence within the next 30 years, which is very scary. So here I just like to point out one thing very quickly about the distinctive location of the airport. While many airports in Japan located in the coastal area are less than 10 meters above sea level and constantly exposed to the flooding risk. But this airport is built on the top of the hill, 100 meters above the sea level. So by nature, the airport is located in a disaster-resilient area with little flooding risk from tsunami or typhoons. Okay, yes, I will move on to key feature. Let me go now to talk about the mitigation and resilient aspect of the project. Well, as you may know, Japan heavily rely on fossil fuel, accounted for 88% of total power generation, and it has become imperative to accelerate renewable energy adoption, significantly increase its renewable share in the energy mix from 17% to at least 40% by 2030 to meet net zero goals by 2050, which was pledged at the COP26. So last year, concessionaire signed a comprehensive agreement with two private companies to promote decarbonization initiatives, aiming to become a zero-emission airport. New solar power generation and storage battery facility will be installed by the end of this year, utilizing the unused land in the airport compound. The plan is to start with a small unit, very small, less than 1 megawatt, to supply electricity for the airport facilities and gradually scaling up renewables to become self-sufficient in the near future. So this could be regarded as a small step, but I think it's very meaningful step moving forward in the transition of decarbonization society. Yes, local production for local consumption is a key concept to enhance disaster preparedness. Well, during normal times, renewable energy will be used to improve the efficiency of the electricity consumption by sharing surplus electricity with other facilities. And when major disaster happens, solar power and battery storage will be used as a backup power source to support the affected area from the potential power outage. And in the future, this new alliance aimed to further expand and scale up this mechanism to the Shirahama area and to the entire Kinnan region to potentially build a microgrid to develop a self-sufficient energy system to reduce the vulnerability of the region. Okay, in this slide, a slightly going off topic, I'd like to briefly talk about maintenance and operation activities driven by the digital technologies, which improves performance of PPPs. Japan is very big on maintenance and repairs because we are facing an aging infrastructure issue, where most of the major infrastructure, such as tunnels, bridges, roads, flood barriers, etc., were built in 1960s, and roughly over 60% of these infrastructure will be over 50 years of age by early 2030. So preventive maintenance measures, which extends the life of infrastructure, will be very important in a long-term contract like PPPs. And for example, at the airport, digital technology is deployed for road condition surveying to detect structural paving damages and monitor the progress of the deterioration by comparing before and after images for better maintenance planning. Technology is also deployed to improve users' experience. Though it's still in the experimental stage, face authentication system. It's something that I find it quite fascinating, where you register a face photo and credit card information in advance at the airport. Visitors can enjoy using hotels, attraction, theme parks, restaurants, and shops with just the face pass. Okay, so I like to finish this case by introducing an initiative to attract more visitors to the area in this very challenging time. The image photo is a co-working space under construction, built inside the airport compound to attract workation visitors to Nanki-Shirahama. The concept of workation, which is a combination of words work and vacation, is rapidly gaining attention in Japan as remote working is spreading widely across the nation in the age of with and after COVID-19. So this flexible working style is supported by the government as part of its work style reformation, with Wakayama Prefecture being the front runner of this workation initiatives. So I like to finish this case by saying, the whole combination of initiatives, including resilience building, is ultimately about the economy and improving overall sustainability of the region, which could not have happened without PPPs. So we are extremely excited and interested to see the progress of the project in how these pieces will come together in the future. Okay. So are you with me, Lady-san? I don't know.
Sorry, yeah, we're listening, and it's please
Is
continue.
it okay?
Yeah,
Is
absolutely.
it okay?
Please continue.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. Okay. Case study. The second case I'm going to present is about Sawara Wide Area Interaction-Based PPP. So this case is about a disaster prevention hub built on the top of the high standard levee, procured through the combination of traditional and PPP approach. So I like to start this case by telling you a little bit about background of the area. Katori City, where facility is located, is about 30 minutes drive from Narita Airport and about 2 hours from central Tokyo by train. Name of the facility is Mizunosato Sawara, meaning home of water town in Japanese, built along the Tone River, which is counted as one of the 3 major rivers in Japan. As you can see in the map, Tone River was originally draining into Tokyo Bay, but in the early 1600s, the river was rerouted to the east to protect Edo from flood damages, which took 60 years to complete the diversion work. Maybe you can call this like a classic nature-based solution. I don't know. In modern times, due to climate change, torrential rains have become more and more pronounced and had become imperative to prepare for the large-scale flooding damages caused by levee failure, which led and motivated government to plan for this project. Okay, so what is this interaction base all about? This place is basically a multifunctional facility serving as a disaster prevention hub with a disaster risk management facility and commercial facilities such as shops and restaurants, recreational, water recreational facility combined in one location. And this is the first case in Japan where PFI method were used for a river project under the direct control of the national government. So broadly speaking, the project consists of 2 components. One is infrastructure procured by the public sector under the traditional procurement scheme. And another is a facilities procured as PFI, implemented as one integrated PPP project. So as for the PFI portion, SPC led by two general contractors are responsible for everything from designing, building, financing, and operation. It is a BTO contract with mix of government pay and user pay model. The project was signed in 2008, with contract period of 17 years, including 2 years construction period. Very quickly, this slide is to give you an overview of the type of facilities in a different component. High standard levy and disaster prevention station, which is colored in blue, was procured by the national government under the traditional procurement mechanism. The road expansion, colored in yellow, was procured by the prefectural government, and colored in green, such as roadside and riverside station, was jointly procured by the national government and the city as a PFI project. So now let me explain about the resilient aspect of this project. Infrastructure which requires big amount of investment, such as high standard levy for flood protection, was procured by the private sector, public sector, with traditional scheme, and the other facilities were procured as PFI. I understand that the key question that needs to be answered is how do we use PPP to incorporate resilience into infrastructure? Though it depends on the level of resilience you're trying to build into a design, when you look at the reality, there's a challenge associated with cost. And private sector might not be able to accept those costs, and maybe not manage it well. So just my opinion is that PPPs can deliver solution, but undertaking PPPs while keeping resilient aspect in a public domain is an option that we shouldn't leave out, because investing in disaster risk reduction for resilience is the priority of the government, and sometimes best managed by the public sector. Okay, and another point that I want to make on this is that this blended finance approach is more broadly applicable to overseas projects to support emerging countries to develop stronger and better infrastructure. The fundamental infrastructure can be built by using ODA loan from the Japanese government, and the facilities can be built and operated by collaboration between Japanese and local companies under PPP scheme. So the Lac Phen port project in Vietnam and Ulaanbaatar airport project in Mongolia was successfully implemented using this approach. And I'll say that probably the most realistic approach to mobilize Japanese private and government funding. So as some of you may know, Japan has pledged contribution worth $70 billion US, both in public and private financing in the next 5 years for climate vulnerable countries, specifically focused in Asia. So, this approach is something that might worth considering, in my opinion. Okay. Okay. Another feature that I'd like to introduce is, facility is designed to have different functions during disastrous time and normal times. Since the disaster education is a critically important side of resilience, the operator places a particular emphasis on not only the physical resilience in the asset, but also the soft element of resilience. So during normal times, facilities are effectively used as a disaster prevention exhibit and multi-purpose training center to raise awareness for disaster risk management. And in the event of disaster, the facility switches function to disaster response center to provide necessary information to support local residents, excuse me, who is in need. Excuse me. Okay, to my last slide of this case, as you can see in the photo, Sawara is a beautiful little town, flourished with its water transportation business during the Edo period, and now being an important preservation district with historical buildings and houses lined along the Ono River. The Sawara PPP project was not developed as a standalone project, but as a part of city's central revitalization plan, integrally developed with other tourism resources, with the aim to boost economic growth of the region. In Japan, many PPP projects are planned with a particular focus on contributing to the regional revitalization because there are many suburban cities and local areas facing the crisis of aging and depopulation issue. So I'd like to emphasize that the goal of PPP is ultimately about bringing long-term economic growth and social benefits to the region. And I would also like to add that prior investment in disaster risk is a mean to assure sustainable economic growth in a sense that economic damage caused by disaster will be mitigated with the money spent up front. So whether it's a traditional or PPP, we want to make sure that acceptable level of disaster resilience is always incorporated in the system. Okay, so I will finish this case, and finally, I have one last slide that I want to share with you. We crafted a project profile to introduce institutional framework of PPPPFI in Japan, and example of 24 PPP projects implemented by Japanese companies in Japan and overseas. Projects were selected based on its applicability to overseas market, focusing on sectors where Japanese experiences can be leveraged. So quite honestly, English writing needs to be pretty much improved, and some word choices must be corrected. But I believe that this material will provide a useful information and help you to gain understanding of PPPs in Japan. So my apologies for not completely following the template. But with that, I'd like to finish my presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for your time. So stop sharing.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr.
Oh,
Tanabe.
yeah.
That was an excellent presentation, and thank you for sharing those two case studies about
Okay.
Nanki-Shirahama Airport and Sawara Wide Area Interaction Base PPP. I think it proves PPPs are more than just a tool to procure infrastructure. Now, I think a few more minutes. Well, 4 minutes actually for Q&A. So, but maybe if you don't mind, I do have a question. Let's put it
So how
here.
many? Okay.
That's after this, may potentially one more question. So
Okay.
is that okay? So it's
Yeah. Yeah.
basically about how Japan has dealt with the impact of COVID-19 and the infrastructure PPP projects. So the question is really, has the authority mainly resorted to force majeure clause of the concession agreement, or
Mhm.
have they applied other types of methods?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So with regards to force majeure, I think I need to start from the principle of public work procurement in Japan, because Japan is prone to natural disasters. So typically, um, the public sector will bear the cost, the disaster cost, and if um, the event qualifies as force majeure, then the public sector will bear the 99% of the cost, and 1% will be bared by the private sector. And this uh, this principle applies to PPP projects as well. And how did how did Japan deal with the situation? The national government um, issued a notice to local governments to basically sending two key messages. One is to consider this COVID event as a force majeure, so it qualifies as a force majeure. And another message was the sent to the local authority was to negotiate in good faith. So this was this was a two key message that the government um, sent, and I think this reflect government's strong desire to prevent PPPs from failing, and it kind of sets a tone for negotiation, and that was like the start of the negotiation. But it's very easier to said than done. Um, in reality, even if the event qualifies as um, the force majeure, then it's quite difficult to identify whether the loss of revenue is from the COVID event or not. So very very tough, challenging, difficult and challenging negotiations still going on. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's right.
I like 1 minute. Okay.
I think there was one more question. I'm not sure. We're a little bit tight on time, but let me just show it on the screen. I'm not sure if you want to take that question or if you prefer to answer it maybe in writing later.
Is the definition of disaster legal bound? Can you maybe Levinson? Can you elaborate a little bit? Definition of disaster legal bound in terms of PPP.
Yeah, I'm not
What is
sure.
it?
Yeah, I mean, maybe just for the sake of time, because the next session is
Mm,
already going to start. If you don't mind, we
okay.
will take the question with us, and then we can reply in writing, if that's okay.
Okay.
And
Yeah. Yeah. That is perfectly fine.
maybe the lady that asked the question, feel free to message us directly. We can
Mm,
elaborate a little bit more. In fact, I
mm.
would invite everyone to find us at the lobby as well. We can have a one-on-one discussion there as well.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Of course. Yes. Yes. I'm happy to
you, you would
help
be
with that.
available for that as well, right,
Yeah.
Mr.
Yeah.
Tanabe?
Yes. Yes. And
Oh,
my email address is in the last page of the presentation. So
right.
if you have any question about presentation or yeah, we were expecting more questions, right?
Yeah,
So we
yeah, but
didn't get much.
so
Oh,
so I would say if there's any more questions, feel free to send to
yes.
us directly. Um, so yeah, I don't know if you have any any final words, Mr. Tanabe, but from my side, I would like to thank all of the 50 or so participants that have stayed with us throughout the presentation. And as mentioned, in case you have any questions, you can always reach out to us either through the website or we will be around on the AirMeet platform, so you can message us directly as well.
Sure.
So yeah, thank you very much for that. Mr. Tanabe, you have any other questions or any other
Yeah,
remarks?
I like to express my deepest gratitude for WAP and to your contribution and effort to organize this very important event. And I look forward to participating for the rest of the event and wishing you successful week. And goodbye for now.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank you
and
so much.
hope to see you all in the
Thank you.
next session. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.